Welcome to another episode of MarTech Unravelled podcast. Today, I'm super excited to talk about one of my favorite productivity tools, and this is Canva. Today, we're talking about Canva Africa, beyond design and toward digital participation. Now, Canva has long been known for making design more accessible, but now, with its recent expansion into Africa, and also a local presence on the continent, the story is becoming much bigger than design. It's all about digital participation, productivity, entrepreneurship, and helping African users create value in ways that reflect our markets and our realities. Today, I am joined by Farai Ntuli, who's the head of partnerships for Canva Africa, to explore Canva's vision for the continent and what it takes to build tools, partnerships, and communities that are truly relevant for Africa. Farai, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Fiona, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I think with such a powerful intro, you've set the foundation for what will be a great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's, dive right into it. And, Canva, as I mentioned, is often understood globally as a design platform. But your work in Africa seems much broader than that. So I'd love to know, how does Canva think about its role in Africa when it comes to the digital transformation journey?
You're absolutely spot on when you say that globally and in many spaces, Canva is still seen as being just a design platform. But the brand has definitely evolved and our tech has evolved to such a point that we see ourselves as a design, AI, and productivity platform. We are the third fastest growing AI company in the world. And this just speaks to the innovation that we are driving every single day at Canva. If you're looking at Canva in Africa, for us, it's about how do we take this powerful product and put it into the hands of different users to assist them in achieving their end goals. And this is why our focus areas would look at SMBs or your SMMEs. And this doesn't mean that you have to have a fully registered business to be using Canva.
Mm-hmm.
You could be selling nyama choma and using Canva for your branding. And that's still what is important and accessible.
Mm-hmm.
We also look at users in education.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us don't know that Canva is 100% free for primary and high schools. And so we're looking at how do we raise more awareness about it and get Canva into the hands of teachers to save them time, to make their lessons more engaging, and to make learners more excited to keep on learning and engaging. And then it's about looking at who else's hands we can get it into. The hands of your everyday users. I am a mom and I love using Canva to design things for my son.
Yeah.
If it's his book covers, if it's his birthday, if it's for a church event. So this is the beauty of Canva. It's about making it accessible in every single context so that it's a tool that can be so embedded in your life because it makes life better for you because of what you can create.
Yeah, I agree. I am a fan. I'm a user of Canva, so I absolutely can, concur with what you're saying. It's a tool that's so easy for anybody to use. You don't need to, have a design background. You can just open the platform and just start playing around with it. That's what I really love about it. So when you look at across African markets, what are the biggest gaps that Canva is trying to solve? I know you've talked about some of the gaps you're trying to solve in terms of access, skills, localization. Tell us a bit more about, the gaps that you're trying to solve when you talk about, expansion in Africa.
Super. So there's a number of gaps that we're looking to solve, right? One is how do we provide teachers and learners to quality tools that enhance learning outcomes at no cost? And this is why we've got the Canva education product. Two is how do we provide SMBs with tools that they can use to enhance their efficiency? A lot of small business owners do everything themselves. They are the salesperson, they are the marketer, they are the ops, they are the HR, they are legal.
Yeah.
And when you're navigating like that, there's so much pressure to show up And having a tool that supports you even in terms of automating key activities and workflows is so critical. So it's helping small businesses. A third aspect is one about, and you mentioned it correctly, which is localization. Canva is an Australian-born brand, but as we grow and expand globally, it's how do we take this global product and make it local to the African market? And localization is not just focused on languages. A lot of people stop there and say, no, Canva's got over 110 languages. We're good, of which 19 are African. But we're intentionally saying, no, there has to be much more that we do. It's about, do you feel as a user that you're represented in this platform when you're using it? What are the sort of elements that you find that represent users? What is that it.out homepage looking like when you're going onto Canva? Does it scream that, hey, this is a Kenyan product? Does it scream that Fiona can use this? Charles can use this. Farai can use this. If it doesn't, then we're missing the mark. So we put a lot of work into localization, which also means when you're searching for pictures on Canva, you should be able to find people that look Kenyan, people that look South African. Because I think what a lot of global brands get wrong is that they'll think we're expanding to Africa and then put a picture of an African. But as Africans, we can tell that this person's probably West African or North African or from the South or from the East. And so doing a lot of work on localization is really key. Another major gap is looking at, and you mentioned it correctly as well, which is creativity, right? What many people don't know is that every time you use a design on Canva, whoever created that design earns royalties.
Oh, wow.
Now, globally, the split is 70-30, whereby creators globally are creating templates, putting them onto Canva, getting them approved, and earning royalties when they're used. And the Canva team supplements 30% of that. In our region, it's 70-30 the other way, where the Canva team is creating 70% of these designs and creators are 30%. And we're working really hard to raise awareness about the creator pathway so that young people, even older people that are very creative, can put their assets onto Canva and monetize them. And this speaks to the gig economy. And in a continent like ours, where we've got millions of unemployed young people, looking at opportunities in the creative economy, like being a Canva creator, becomes such a lucrative end-to-end pathway for them. So we're really being intentional about what our presence looks like, and it's what makes it quite unique in terms of how are we engaging, who are we partnering with, and how are we ensuring that Canva is not just driving awareness, but it is driving utilization in a way that is helpful for users in Africa.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think, you've really hit on so many unique points that are unique to the African context. Number one, I think around, employment and youth employment. I think the creative industries are now really getting a lot of traction, a lot of attention, because a lot of the young people are creators. They are, musicians, they are graphic designers, they are comedians. So, how are they being supported with the right tools and with employment opportunities? So I really love that, Canva has done that research and said, hey, what's unique in the African market and how can we support it, with the creator program that you just mentioned?
Absolutely. It's so important. And I think one more thing to add is that there's a big push on the continent to move towards exports. And it's why we've got the Continental Free Trade Agreement. It's why so many of our policies across government are looking at how do we drive exports. And a key component of that is capacitating exporters with the ways in which they can present their businesses. So even at a higher education level, a lot of the focus is always on universities, and we are, of course, expanding to universities, but we're also being very intentional about TVETs, your technicons, to say, how do we get these young people with their skills? How do we make their skills exportable? How do we help them to present their businesses in a way that can build a sustainable pipeline of revenue for them because they are presenting trust in their brand? So there's so much that we are doing on the continent, and it's exciting to have conversations like these to just unpack them a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just on the localization bit, I think, I'd love to, talk a little bit more about that as well, because I think also localization is making payments accessible. Maybe you can talk us through that a little bit. Sometimes with these global platforms, it can feel like I don't have a credit card, I don't have a debit card. How do I access them? Or the price point is completely, out of reach. How is Canva thinking about that?
That's something that my colleague Priscilla works really, really hard on, which is how do we make payments local to our market? And this is because sometimes global standards of signing up, paying monthly, or even paying a yearly subscription may not work for us. Sometimes you need a single element in Canva, which you can purchase. We've also been looking at, can you get weekly subscriptions or a day
Mm.
subscription?
Oh,
So we're
wow.
playing around in terms of what payments look like that suits our market. But I think some of the key wins we've achieved is the integration of M-Pesa with Canva.
Mm-hmm.
So how in Kenya you can pay with such ease.
Mm-hmm.
In Nigeria, we've got a similar model. South Africa has got Capitec Pay. And we keep on looking at various emerging fintech platforms that allow us to drive easily accessible payment methods for Africans. And that's been really key. And we'll keep on exploring those, especially as we expand, because our focus markets for this year have really looked at South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. And we do still have a lot more to do. I mean, our continent has got 55 countries.
Yeah,
So there's so much more that we can do
yeah.
in how we are localizing to every single market.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. Like localization for me is like one of the big keys that will unlock, you know, usage and adoption and, feeling like this tool is ours and I can express myself effectively. So, that's why I'm super excited about just talking about how you localizing, how, you're not just jetting into to the continent and be like, just buy our stuff. You're like, okay, let's understand what's going on here and how do we make it better for the people. So that's why I'm so excited to talk more about the localization side of things. Um, Yeah, and also with AI, I think you also touched on AI. The images. We it's a big conversation with AI and finding images that represent us more, not just the old images of starving children and all of that. There's so much more to Africa. There's so much vibrance, so much culture, so much and all of so much amazing. Um, Amazingness that we have, and it's great to see that Canva is also thinking about, okay, how do we embed that and make available images that represent our different cultures.
And to your point, I mean, you've said it so well. Africa is creativity defined. We set trends, then the rest of the world follows them. We are creative in our print, in our hair,
Mm,
in our dance, in our movies,
yeah,
everything about us is creative,
yeah.
and it's who we are. And when Canva was launching here in Africa last year, we had the launch in November, and it was to say, Africa doesn't need help with creativity. We already are. But
Mm-hmm.
how can this tool complement what we do?
Yeah.
How can this tool enhance what we do and make our workflows better?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me has been the most exciting part about this marriage, which is looking at what we already have and enhancing that. I mean, I was at a conference last week, and
Mm-hmm.
what everyone loved was, and from all the other countries, they couldn't believe how anything that you put in on Canva AI, prompting it about any African country, particularly when you're looking at culture, will give you the exact cultural nuances and beauty that Africa has. And in
Nice.
other countries, they were like, oh, we wish we had this. And that's what makes it so special for me and the rest of the team to say, it's such an exciting role to be in because of this intersection of magic that we already have as Africans,
Mm-hmm.
coupled by this tool that can enhance it further.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. So now let's switch gears and talk about education. I know the education element is quite a big one for Canva, and you've been working with ministries and teachers and so on. And so I'm curious, not many people would know much about the work you do in the education space or even about Canva education. So I'd love to know, why is education such an important entry point for Canva's Africa strategy?
So education in Canva is what I spend 80% of my day doing. That is my focus. And Canva education is 100% free for primary and high schools. And in essence, it is the Canva platform with the premium version that is geared towards educational content. In fact, there's over 1.5 billion educational templates and designs on Canva.
Wow.
Part of what we recently launched is something called LearnGrid, which gives educators curriculum-aligned content that is generated by AI. So we did a major push with our team, as well as actual educators, to make sure that we've got the right curriculum onto Canva. So far, it's only expanded on the continent to South Africa and to Egypt, but the goal is to keep on growing that. So definitely with our work in Kenya, we'll have that as a focus. Looking at Nigeria, we're also engaging Rwanda. So there's so many other avenues in which we'll grow to have curriculum-aligned content on Canva. Now, to answer your question, which is why is education important to Canva and to Africa? To Canva, education is important because our founders actually have both been educators and their parents were educators as well.
Oh, wow.
So it's a legacy of education. But as a company, we've adapted the belief that education should be accessible, should be free, and should be quality, regardless of the sort of circumstances you grew up in. And that's why what we often say, and we say boldly and very openly, is that education in Canva will remain free for primary, for high schools, for secondary schools in perpetuity. And that is also our way as a company of ensuring that we do good. We still have what we call a step 2 program, which is through our foundation. How do we do as much good? But core is really how do we do good through having this product as free for learners and for teachers across primary, secondary, and high schools.
Wow, cool. I didn't know that about the founders, that they have a history of education, and also their parents also have that history. So, that's really good to know and see how it flows into the vision and so on. I wanted to just double down on that point about curriculum aligned elements in the Canva education. What does that actually mean? What does that look like? Like, maybe give us an example of, what does that curriculum alignment look like, in the South African context or the Egyptian context, just to paint that picture and bring it to life.
Of course. So I think a key thing is to say, if we take a step back, when teachers are looking for anything on Google that is related to the classroom, teachers are most likely looking for templates. And we see that from our SEO search data. Teachers are looking for templates for lesson plans, for worksheets, for posters, for presentations. Sometimes some teachers make websites, and teachers are often looking for calendars, even the simple things like certificates. Teachers are looking for all of these, what we call it, Canva doc types.
Yeah.
A key thing that's emerged for South African teachers, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of other countries, is that teachers are so bombarded with admin. And when you're so bombarded with admin, it becomes so difficult to put your time into lesson planning that's engaging, because you just want to get the lesson done.
Yeah.
And what that results in is in teachers presenting content that, if we put it honestly, is boring to students. If you're presenting photosynthesis in black and white, it's so boring to a student to understand, but what does this really mean for me? And so what Canva does, and what we've seen across different markets, including in Kenya, there's a fantastic teacher named Anne Rose who is doing the most incredible work with her students. But what Canva does is to reduce time for lesson planning for teachers from what could take 3 hours historically to 10 minutes.
Wow.
A teacher can upload a previous lesson plan into Canva, prompt the AI and say, make this engaging to a 2026 grade 5 audience for me. Add colors, add a quiz, ensure that there are enough visuals to trigger memory encoding. The AI will spit out in less than 2 minutes a content or a lesson plan that is engaging, that the student can, that the teacher can then use with her students.
Yeah.
So that's the first win, which is from saving time for teachers. The second win is what was also mentioned in that initial example, which is making lessons engaging. What many of us struggle with today is how visual the world is. And Canva did a state of visual communication report last year. And something critical that emerged is that when you present visuals in a way that is engaging, in a way that is creative, it triggers memory encoding 74% faster than dull alternatives. And it also triggers emotional engagement.
Yeah.
And that's why these days we wake up and we scroll on our phones and we scroll and we scroll, and 15 minutes later we're like, oh shoot, I'm late for work. It's because the visual content is so captivating to us. And so teachers these days are competing with the likes of TikTok, of YouTube, of Instagram, of Facebook. And it's because the content is so much more engaging and teachers are frustrated. So Canva says, how do we take your content, make it visually engaging, and spark into action in the classroom? And we've seen various results of these from conversations with teachers, from feedback from students about how lessons on photosynthesis are so much more engaging because of how they're being presented. To your key question on what does LearnGrid look like, in all those searches a teacher does, our goal is to direct him or them to to Canva. On Canva, they can then pick and access various templates. But that's the one step, and that's the easy step that a lot of educators have access to. The next step is for a teacher to say, grade 8 science. She picks her location as South Africa, and then it spits out key content for her that is aligned to the curriculum. She can then go as far as picking, this is the exact subject matter we're talking about. She then edits the template to reflect anything that she wants to see, and then she can use it within the classroom. And this is what LearnGrid is all about. It's about having, in our context, an SA CAPS-aligned curriculum that you can easily tap into. And our goal was to keep expanding this to other countries because teachers have shared it gives them such ease. The usual stress in the morning of prepping for the lessons is gone because now they have got content that is provided that they can leverage and that's engaging for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's so cool. Because I think, learning should be fun for sure. It should be engaging. It should, generate curiosity. It should be colorful. So I think, and also I think you mentioned a really interesting point. Like learning has changed. Like when we were in school, how we learned, and now there's a total shift with now the digital economy and devices. Now it's like, okay, what do we do when there's these competing things? How do we still make learning interesting and engaging and fun and all of that? So that's really cool.
Absolutely. You have to, else you lose your students and you get frustrated when you see them post dancing videos on TikTok. I've seen a lot in Kenya and in South Africa as well. The students are always dancing. But how are you also meeting them where they are?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, for SMEs, design is often treated as a nice to have, yet, we know visibility and storytelling and trust are one of the central pillars for, growth of business. So how does Canva support African SMEs when it comes to, competing more effectively and using the tools and productivity?
So what's really key for us in our strategy is what we call the 4 A's. How do we drive awareness? How do we drive acquisition? How do we get active users? And how do we drive advocacy? For SMEs, the strategy is the same, which is how do we drive awareness about Canva for SMEs? That it's not just a design platform, but a platform that is used for productivity, that's used for collaboration. It's an AI tool as well, which is really critical. You said it so well that a lot of the times design is just seen as a nice to have. And so if an SME has a spend they would likely want to spend it on rent or other things than to spend it on design. But in our visually communicative world, brands that leverage visual communication are those that do better to retain their audiences. And this was one of the key aspects of the study that emerged that Canva did last year on the state of visual communication. We all can know a Nike advert before we even see the tick. And it's because of how a brand like Nike has got so great at how they tell their story visually. And you mentioned the aspect of trust. We go to brands that we trust. And if brands are consistent in their branding, in what it looks like when they show up, that consistency translates into actually, I want to keep supporting that brand. But the moment it's not consistent, the moment you're not seeing that brand telling their story, the moment even something small like a logo changes, then there is concern about that. I've seen conversations about the change with the Spotify logo on LinkedIn. And it just shows you that even tiny things like that can cause customer reactions. So we are driving awareness with SMMEs to position Canva as a tool that is your helper. And this is why we always say, whether you have a car wash business in the township or a rural area, you have got a fancy law firm in Nairobi, Canva is still very helpful and very useful for you. The second part of the strategy is then acquisition. And this is where we partner a lot with networks of SMMEs. In South Africa, we have got 2 partners that we work with. In Kenya, looking a lot at the work of women in tech and still exploring what else we can do. Partnering with these networks from an SMME perspective has been so critical because that is how we then engage SMMEs at scale and drive acquisition, which is now you know of Canva. How do we get you onto Canva? Then we look at the active users components, and it links to some of our plans coming up, which is aspects like how do we have business clinics for SMMEs, where we are in a community and Canva staff and what we call Canvassators, which are Canva super users, are actually helping you with your business needs. And for us, being practical translates better. We can do as many webinars as we want, which are practical, but also that physical engagement where Fiona has got her SMME toolkit in front of me and I can sit with you and assist you. That's where we really find the biggest difference. And so we really are driving the strategy. It's so important for us. And what we do see, I mean, in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, it's something like 77% of Canva users in Kenya are businesses. In South Africa, it's 71%. So the data is showing us already where the biggest need is for Canva. And it's about how do we continue to support this need and to expand it.
Wow, awesome. You touched on partnerships and how you're growing across the continent, and also the Canvassators. I'm quite curious. Tell us more about the Canvassators. Like, how do you become a Canvassator? I think people will be quite curious to know more about them.
Oh, we would love to have more Canvassators, and you'd be so proud. Our Canvassators based in Kenya hosted the first community lab this weekend. It was a Canva community lab where they had over 100 attendees who all came to upskill themselves in Canva. Wow. And that was driven purely by them, which was so exciting. And so Canvassators are what we call Canva super users who are really good at speaking about Canva, can speak on a platform like this, can speak at an expo, can facilitate a workshop. These are our Canvassators. Then your creators are those that are super good at creating on Canva. They're 2 separate streams. Once in a while, you can be a creator and a Canvassator, provided you do have the creativity skills and you can speak about Canva on different platforms. To sign up, the information is available online, so you can just search for Canvassator or apply to become a Canvassator. I can also share the links with you after this as well. And yeah, and then it's great. One can just sign up, go through an application process. If it's approved, then that's when you become a Canvassador and a creator. And we tap on our Canvassadors a lot. We're a really small Africa team. So if we have got various events coming up, we would get our Canvassadors to be part of that. And of course, once again, it is a good form of gig work, because in South Africa, we have a saying that says nothing is for mahala, which is like nothing is for free. So when you work with us as an ambassador, we honor you for the efforts that you put in. And that's been really critical to us.
Awesome. Now that's an amazing opportunity. I'm sure there'll be lots of people who would be interested in signing up for that. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity as you grow, to accommodate more and more Canvassadors on the continent.
We have ambitious targets for Canvassadors, so keep them coming.
Awesome. So, looking ahead, as Canva is growing, you're about 6 months, 7 months in to, since you launched in your presence in Africa. What would success look like for Canva Africa over the next few years?
We have a big, hairy, audacious goal that by 2030, every 1 in 5 Africans with internet access should be using Canva. So that is our major goal.
Yeah.
And in achieving that goal, success would mean that we have had even more education rollouts across even more countries, that we have got localization expanded to as many countries as is possible by 2030, that we have looked at what are key regional payment options and what are payment durations or short payment plans that work for our market, that we have also, from a community perspective, grown the Canvassadors and the creators so that Africans find a product that is already representative of them. That from an SMB perspective, we are showcasing the ease of use which SMBs have when they're leveraging Canva, and how we are actually empowering SMEs to use the tool effectively. And so these are all various ways in which we're contributing to what that success looks like of that 1 in 5 Africans.
Oh, wow. That's definitely a audacious goal, but I think quite achievable. I think quite achievable with the vision you have and the partnerships that you're looking to gain. I'm really excited to see what Canva will achieve, and looking forward to more conversations. I know the time feels so short. I think we could talk more and more, but thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, Farai. And maybe we could revisit this conversation in a year or two and look back and say, okay, this is where you started and this is what you've achieved. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for having me on your podcast. I'm so excited to have spent this time with you, and I'm really looking forward to not only what Canva can do in Africa, but what Canva can do in Kenya. I feel like we've only just touched the surface, and there's so much more that we can do. And it's through partnerships with yourself and with so many others that we can get there. So a big thank you for this opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And that's another episode of MarTech Unravelled podcast. Make sure to subscribe and to share this episode.